With 18 new players on the roster this year, there were many questions surrounding the men's hockey team as it embarked on a new campaign. 18 games into the season, we now have a much better idea of what this team is all about and what the future may hold. Today we sit down with head coach Forbes MacPherson and take a look back at the first half and sneak a peek into what lies ahead for the rest of the season. Coach, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Schultz.
I think the challenge here today might be if you and I can get through this interview without coughing on one another. So we'll see how we get along, but anyway, we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. So Forbes, listen, we're partway through the 23-24 hockey season, and this year was a massive year in terms of massive changeover. Totally new look for the program. 18 new bodies coming in. Can you sort of provide, I guess, for our listeners, a bit of perspective as to what it's like to go through that process of trying to find 18 holes and fill them and basically construct a new team?
Yeah, it was a massive task, but I guess on a positive side is we knew what was in front of us, so we knew that was coming down the pipe. So we knew we were going to have massive changeover heading into this season. Recruiting's always very competitive and very time consuming. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So when you add to the fact that we were also hosting the Nationals last year, that was obviously a priority.
Right.
So when you're looking at, dividing your day up time-wise, and you're focused on the current season and the Nationals,
right?
And then you include like your day-to-day work plan and schedule, but then also knowing that this daunting task of recruiting a whole new roster for the next season, just made for a really busy spring last year. But in a real odd way, it made well, we were all very excited about the Nationals last year, but looking forward and looking past the Nationals, it kind of made for the idea of an exciting spring. So it wasn't really because even though the task was large,
didn't seem daunting.
It didn't seem daunting. It kind of seemed exciting. So kind of injected some juice into me heading into the next year.
But did you do it alone? Or was do you have kind of a support network around it?
Yeah, so we had a gentleman in Ontario, David Lang is his name, and he's been helping us in the Ontario area for the last number of years.
Thanks, Dave.
And then obviously within here, there's a lot of people I lean on around here, but that's more so for collecting information and kind of doing your due diligence on players. And I've kind of leaned on those people for a number of years now. Within our kind of Panther staff or family, Andrew Penny would offer the most support. He's a guy who's dialed in on recruiting, and he watches a lot of video and gives me a lot of information. But at the end of the day, making those calls as far as securing the deal and getting things done and building that relationship with the player, because that there has to be a good
it's ultimately fit. You at the end.
Ultimately, that has to get done through me, and not to get my stamp, but that player has to know who's going to be coaching them next year, and that relationship has to be there.
Absolutely. So, Forbes, if you think about it, we expected bumps along the way in the first half of the year with so many new bodies, a lot of questions, a lot of wondering what's it going to be like. Which, as you say, is exciting. I was excited. I liked it. And I love the freshness of it. How would you assess the performance of the new group? What's gone well? What are maybe some areas of improvement that you see with the team?
Well, I mean, this is a great group. This has been a real fun first semester, and granted, we're 7-10-1.
Yep.
So where we are in the standings in a normal year, perhaps wouldn't be the goal.
Right.
But you have to take things in perspective, and we always say there's an adjustment in this league for even the best major junior players that are transitioning into U sport.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you throw 18 fresh faces into this league, and some of them have limited major junior experience, and some of them don't have any major junior experience. So there's a little bit of a mixed bag there of experiences coming in from a junior career. But I'm telling you, a testament to this group, the culture is as good as I've ever seen in a hockey team. And they come to work every day, and they come to practice every day, and work hard, and everybody's buying in, and it's been an awesome semester.
Have they kind of distinguished themselves as a very distinct group from, you hate to compare teams, and this team kind of stands alone in a lot of regards, don't they?
Yeah, it does. I mean, and I think a lot of it is because we're trying to figure out what we have and who fits where. When I think back early in September and October, certain guys that were in certain spots on like PP units or PK, maybe they're not there any longer. Right. And it was just trial and error and trying to make things happen. And our PP did struggle out of the gate.
Sure did.
But all of a sudden, we got it going now. It's about like 20 or 21%, and that's pretty good PP. Absolutely. So that's just an example.
PK's been really good too.
PK's been good. PK came out of the gate really good, right? The goaltending was good, so that's obviously big component of the PK
for sure.
But those are just examples of trial and error early with so many fresh faces.
Yeah. Now, Forbes, I know you're loath to sort of cite individual players in terms of accomplishments and whatnot. So I'll take this one. And I concur with what you're saying. I've really enjoyed watching this team, the growth that they've had over the first half. But there's a few players that I'd like to sort of, highlight myself and kind of get your take in terms of how you see their first half going and maybe what the future holds. And maybe I'll start in nets with Joe Ranger.
Yeah.
A few years ago, Cappy came in, created his own story. I think Joe Ranger's kind of creating his own little story here as well, too, isn't he?
He is, and it's very similar circumstances. When we were hosting the Nationals, our goaltending situation was looking very bright at that time. And when we first had discussions with Cappy, kind of the arrangement was Cappy was coming in to be the third goalie, right? And he was not the third goalie for one day, right? Just early on in camp, you could see that this guy was something special. Heading into the first game of the regular season, literally 2 days before, we were just it was a flip-flop who we were going to start that night, ended up being Cappy, and the rest of the story, he just flourished from there on.
Yep.
And Joe was very similar, when we knew Cappy was coming back this year. So we had our sights set on Robillard here in town, and we were really Jacob and I had a lot of discussions, and we were kind of into the recruiting process very deep. And I had a sense that Roby was going to be committing to UPEI.
Right.
And we were in the early stages of recruiting Joe, but Joe showed significant interest in UPEI. So it put us in a situation where potentially we were going to have 3 goalies for this year.
Yeah.
But long term, Joe and Jacob would be the partnership moving forward.
Right.
And everybody with all cards on the deck, everybody bought into that game plan.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you come to camp, Roby gets an injury early.
Thank God Joe's here.
Joe was given an opportunity.
Came out of the gates pretty good.
Came out of the gates.
1-0 loss to UNB.
And he's very similar story to Cappy previously, right?
Yep.
And
he and Jacob have that childhood relationship.
They do.
Too,
they were teammates prior, growing up in minor hockey. They're very familiar with each other.
Yeah.
So we feel like we're in a good situation there.
Good stuff. He's a pretty good interview too.
He's And you know, we say this a lot in hockey, but he is a great person.
Isn't he?
Very good student. He's quality character. You know, it just goes along with that theme of that dressing room. Like I said, the culture is phenomenal, and you know, the culture is made up of a collection of individuals, and Joe's just an example of that.
Yeah. So on the back end, the newly minted captain is kind of taking his game to a new level, hasn't he?
He has, and it's funny, you know, we didn't have a lot of returnees, so. But having said that, you know, I was chatting with a couple players early, a couple of the freshmen, and two of them were together one day, and we were just having a sidebar conversation, like down by the dressing room early on, and a couple of them told me they knew within the first day of being here that Hank was going to be the captain. And
interesting.
It's just, you know, he's really he gets it, right? He's really growing over the years. Like he had his freshman fun. There's no question, and then you settle in, and everybody was dialed in last year again for the Nationals. But you know, with all that loss last year, you know, there was a couple players that potentially could have came back, whether it was to upgrade or do a master's program or whatever. But I think that knowing that it was going to be such a massive turnover might have created hesitation to come back and kind of start with a new team.
Yeah.
And Hank was the opposite. He was very similar to the staff. He was beyond excited about this new group, and you know, the opportunities it gave for him to be a leader, and I mean, he's just a horse on the ice this year.
Unreal.
A lot of people forget too, early on, the injuries we were dealing with. Yeah. We were playing some nights, I think, a stretch with 4D, right? And that meant big minutes, and you did not see his play drop a whole lot, and that's not easy at this level. So
you didn't see him leave the ice very often either.
No, he's, you know, guys thrive under that situation, right?
Yeah.
So he's been a horse. He's been our leader. He's leading us offensively, which, you know, we certainly didn't expect. But he stepped up in every single area.
Yeah. Going back to Nationals, of course, that was a bit of a coming out party for 15 on the right side, and he hasn't slowed down much since.
No, and he's, you know,
of course, we're referring to Caleb Piercy.
Yeah, Piercy. He was in my you know, opinion, he was one of the best players at the Nationals last year, not just for us, but for all the teams.
Yep.
He really stood out. You know, I talked to a lot of hockey people over the course of the summer that were here at the tournament, and that sentiment seemed to be echoed by a lot of people, a lot of hockey people.
Yeah.
And of course, with Piercy, struggled a little bit out of the gate. But he was playing very well. His game was really good, and sometimes he's hard on himself, and he doesn't realize that when he's doing the little things, his game is really good. And then he got rewarded and scored and had a big night against Dal, and he's been rolling ever since. And when he's scoring, he's really feeling it, and if he continues to do those little things,
sets up well. And he's, you know, he's as good of you know, pro prospect as we've had in a long time. I'd agree. And, you know, a guy who's kind of, in terms of catching lightning in a bottle, his newly matched up centerman, Elias Cohen. After a similar slow start, you know, you kind of looked at Elias early in the year and you said, yeah, I see something. And then all of a sudden, you're going back to that tinkering process. He moves from the wing into centerman. Boom. Match him up with Piercy. His game kind of take off to a different level.
He has been one of many, but probably one of the key bright spots. Like you said, he has really elevated his game. I think his ceiling is even higher. I think maybe we're just scratching the surface there. But he does stuff every single day in practice that he has next level skill. And he started to play a little bit more on his toes, and what I always refer to is like bent knees and getting in on hunting pucks and turning pucks over. He has really high-end skill, but you'd be, I don't know, maybe not, but maybe surprised that he's really conscious defensively. He loves taking care of the D zone. So he has a lot of elements to his game that we were really excited by, and you know, we really had a good first semester in perspective, we finish off strong, 3-1-1.
Yeah.
But of course, everything gets ramped up here the second semester,
100%.
and we'll need him to continue that progress.
A guy for me who's kind of really made a nice adjustment in an understated way is Patty LeBlanc.
Yeah.
You know, you need guys, you need depth players who can do a variety of things. Patty LeBlanc's been, for me, a nice little pleasant surprise.
He has.
Not a surprise, but maybe a pleasant progression.
And he's a little bit of like a Swiss Army knife. He's a really good face-off guy. He's been a really good face-off guy.
He's been running about 54%.
Yeah. So, and that's something we didn't anticipate. And I told him that, you know, when he was in Major Junior, maybe not so dominant in the face-off circle. Last year when we were watching him in the MHL playoffs, he was dominant in the face-off circle.
Right.
So, you know, we were curious to see if it was because it was that level,
right,
or was it because he was
actually good.
Yeah, really good, becoming more of a mature, filled out, maybe a little bit stronger, smarter.
Yeah.
And we weren't expecting it in our league. You know, a lot of good centermen in our league.
Yeah.
A lot of teams focus on face-offs. It's a key area in AUS hockey.
Right.
And he's been dominant. So that's been a pleasant surprise.
For sure.
And not only that, he's been a joy. He's a quiet guy.
Very.
And but I think we got him a little bit out of his shell, and
well,
you know, you get a little smile out of Patty on a daily basis, and it makes your day.
Good stuff. So Forbes, the roster is going to stay the same.
Yep.
There'll be no changes. It's actually been quiet right around the league. There hasn't, hearing murmurings about some players, a few players being added here and there, but the roster will remain intact. Injuries were a part of the first term. Leon Denny was out for a little bit. He came back into the lineup. Dave D'Agostino went down early. Cam Morton went down kind of mid-term. A guy who really, his game is coming along well too. So maybe can you provide a bit of an injury update on I guess maybe the team in general, and maybe Dags and Cam in particular?
So yeah, we were recruiting actively, just like we would on a normal Christmas break time of year, and you know, but it had to be a good fit. Like we want the focus this year to be on this team. There's still a lot for us to learn about our current roster and what we have here. As we indicate, you know, we've already learned that certain guys have raised the bar and shown us more of a ceiling already. We want to see a few more guys through transition and see what we can get out of them, and it's all about this group maturing and whatnot. So it would have been a special circumstance.
Right.
However, we did investigate and see what was out there.
Yeah.
Nothing came to fruition.
Sure.
We're also looking at it like some of those names you mentioned, like you know, Grulzy. Once, you know, he wasn't healthy this semester, right? So we only got 8 games out of him. He missed 10 games.
Yep.
Morty's back, so that, to me, that's like a Christmas addition right there, right? We get him back in the lineup, and not only just adding a player, but he adds a leader, and he's a key minutes and specific type of player, right?
Yeah.
So, ironically, you know, a couple of the guys that were injured during the first semester potentially could be back from the injury, but now they're suffering from
lack of playing.
Well, the illness that's going around with everybody right now. Yeah. So, you know, even a guy like Grulzy and Dags haven't really skated since they've been back. So we've been on the ice now for about a week, and they haven't skated because they've been down and out sick.
Boys can't get a break.
Right? They can't get a break. So, but they will recover from that, and we're kind of looking at those injuries as the players that we're adding, which is legitimate. So that brings, you know, once again, another level of excitement heading into the second semester.
Good stuff. So Forbes, it seems like there's, the way the standings have broken down midpoint, UMB is just 18-0, give them first place, park that. That's going to stay. Then you get a bunch, UDM, SMU X, you can put a Kleenex over them, and then you got a group at the 5, 6, 7 with Dal and Acadia and UPEI. It's going to make for an interesting second half, and it's going to make for a lot of battles. What's it going to take in order to get the team into, I mean, ideally 3rd or 4th, But first of all, secure a playoff spot, and then what's going to take to get the best position possible?
Well, one good thing is, as I just indicated, we were feeling really good about our game heading into the break. So now it's almost like a long intermission here, and we kind of have to, we have to get back to that. So not only back to that, but as I just indicated, the play will rise here in the second semester.
Yeah.
Everybody would have had a chance to get healthy again.
Yeah.
So any injuries anybody would have had at the time when the first semester ended, most likely those are all healed up and everybody's dialed in and ready to go. It gives everybody whatever any team was going through at the end of the first semester, gives you a chance to kind of get healed up. Maybe step away, a little mental break, reset, and get back at it. So everybody's going to be excited and motivated. And so we just have to continue to grow. Kind of our strategy, our philosophy with this group all year has been small game segments. We knew that we were going to have some rough patches through the course of the year, and if we just made it one long season, then we wanted to be able to put a stop to any of those moments. So we'll pick that up where we left off, and we'll focus on a small game segment. We'll set some short-term goals and get our guys dialed in and be excited and ready to go.
Awesome. Speaking of excitement, January 20th will be a weekend that'll be exciting for, I guess, for the players and certainly for the old timers too. Alumni weekend.
27th.
27th. Sorry,
27th,
excuse me. Yeah, sorry, 27th. Got to be looking forward to that too.
Well, I mean,
that'll be a new experience for 18 players.
It will be. It will be, and that's something that we talk about all the time. Even during the recruiting process, and it's a big night. It's one of those nights. I'm sure that when the schedule comes out for you, everybody circles it and gets excited, and plans make sure that they have that night kind of blocked out and committed to come back with the program and. A lot of the same stories are floating around. Maybe they get better every single year, but it's always a big night, and it's a night that all of our it's the night that the players that are the most recent graduates get really excited about it because they go through it for 3 or 4 years.
Sure. Of course, the most recent ones got interrupted and they get robbed of a few years.
That's true, right? And that's true, and that'll make these next few years even more special. And of course, coming off the Nationals last year, which was a massive alumni event. Hopefully, but everybody's excited to get back to our normal routine of our alumni night.
Yeah. Well, listen, buddy, it's great to have you back. I'm glad we both survived the holidays here. It was not a pleasant last few days, but good times ahead, and all the best in the next rest of the season, buddy.
All right, thanks, Schultz. Happy New Year, and look forward to the second half.
You too, bud.